and welcome to Waterhouse Aquatics. Today we're going to be looking at the HMA filter, specifically provided by FinerFilters.co.uk. It will be the 3-stage rather than 2-stage, which consists of a sediment filter, a GAC and KDF filter, and a carbon block filter at the end. We're going to be focusing on changing the cartridges, the general setup and maintenance of the filtration system, and how it's used. So let's have a look at the 3 cartridges provided with your HMA filter and what they do. The first one would be the sediment filter. This collects rust, silt and sand and other sediments up to 5 micron. Basically, the water from the water supply company to your property comes through a variation of pipework, some of it being plastic, some of it being metal. And as you can imagine on the way, it does collect some particles which we do not want entering our fish tanks. Then we move on to the GAC/KDF filter. This cartridge removes chlorine and other organic compounds. Obviously, chlorine is something we do not want entering our system because it will eventually enter your filter. And as we know, chlorine kills bacteria, which is something we do not want to happen to our filters because this will basically crash the system. We then move into the carbon block filter. Again, another one what reduces chlorine down to a minimum level. Other chemicals and other organic compounds can be found in the water at this point, and the carbon block filter does remove these. So the water at the end of the filtration system should be as pure as water can get without going through an RO system. It hasn't removed any minerals or anything like that. It hasn't removed phosphates or nitrate. And it will go through to basically being pure water, good enough to keep fish at a healthy level. So one question I do get asked a lot is, how will an HMA filter improve my fish health? Well, directly it won't. We're looking at more of the conditions your fish live in and how to introduce the best water whilst doing a water change. So as we know, chlorine is poisonous to fish, and it's even more damaging to a biological filtration system. So removing chlorine is key here. However, found in your water supply are a lot of heavy metal compounds such as lead, mercury, arsenic, aluminium and iron, which can all be damaging to your fish's health. So removing those, again, is a key area. So now we've covered what the actual filter does, let's look at how we change the cartridges. So the cartridges here are supplied by FinerFilters.co.uk. One of the first things we need is the tool to remove the outer casings. It's basically a giant plastic spanner. Another thing we'll need is a tub to put the old filters in because we don't want water all over the floor, and a tea towel to catch any drips because this is not a dry process. You will get slightly wet, so keep one to hand. So we start off by disconnecting the HMA filter from the source. In my case, it is a garden hose outdoor tap connected through a 3/4 BSP connection into a 1/4 inch push fit pipe, which goes into my HMA filter. As you can see, these 3 cartridges there, you've got the sediment on the left, you've got the GAC in the middle, and the block carbon filter on the right. I will point out at this point that we will be draining the system before we start, just to avoid any spillages and water dropping all over the floor as we start to undo them. This is a beneficial step, however, it is not necessarily if you don't want to do this. It's just something I do whilst changing mine. So I'm sure you've all got better things to do than watch water drain out of a HMA system. It does take a few minutes to fully drain, so we'll just fast forward this step until we get to the actual cartridge changes. At this point we will be changing the cartridges. You can do this in any order. I start with the carbon block filter, which would be the output. This is just a personal preference, there's no real reason to do it in this way, it's just the way I do it. In the middle it will be the KDF and GAC filter. And at the beginning, where the water enters the filter, we have the sediment filter. So we take our giant spanner, and that just slips easily over the bottom of each unit, and we turn that clockwise just to break the seal, and then we can do the rest by hand. Um, as you can see, just twist, nothing difficult, and then remove the actual cartridge and replace with the new. As you can see, you need to do this 3 times over. They're all the same. So I will leave the commentary at this point and just let you watch the video. Once the new cartridge has been installed, it's just a matter of screwing the unit back onto the main housing. I will point out at this point that the cartridges do have to be centralized, so just take your time putting them in place and then tighten them up by hand, and then using the large spanner at the end, just a small turn just to make sure it's nice and tight. Please do not over tighten it because you can crack the plastic housing if you apply too much force. And that is our process complete. All 3 cartridges have now been replaced. So it's just a matter now of reconnecting your water supply. Just make sure things are nice and tight by hand. I wouldn't suggest using any kind of tools to do this. You don't want to over tighten your fittings because that does lead to leaks. Make sure we're all connected and flush the water through. It is suggested by the manufacturers of the HMA systems that you flush the systems for about 5 minutes after any kind of cartridge change or a new setup is put in place. This basically just removes any floating particles or loose particles from the cartridges which are introduced into the system. The only real time I've seen this is on the block carbon, where you do get some carbon particles, just as you would with any carbon you add to your filtration system. The 5-minute flush is more than enough to clear these out, and then we have fresh water ready for our water changes. I hope you found today's video helpful. If you did, please consider hitting the subscribe button and have a look at FinerFilters.co.uk as well. They do offer a large range of HMA filters, whether it be the 20-inch or the 10 as we saw in today's video, all the way down to the hose lock and the 1/4 inch again as we saw in today's video. I've been a customer with this company for quite a while now and always found their products and service outstanding, so please consider giving them a check. Thank you for watching.